There is so much noise out there, and some of it, is like, prove the people who did you wrong, and you prove them wrong, prove them that you can do it. And it's like, no, because what are you going to do after that? Who are you going to prove next?
Son, welcome to Unmatched.
You should be optimizing your life for that freedom of choice. And to have that freedom of choice, you actually should be learning to make better decisions.
I think I'm going to learn a lot from you today.
And I hate productivity apps because we start developing a dependency on, habit apps reminding us that we need to breathe. And I think the more you can rely on yourself, the better.
Time doesn't seem to be a currency for us.
Imagine you've just got an hour left till that point and you look back. What is the biggest thing you would ever regret doing?
Son, welcome to Unmatched.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So, Son, tell me who you are, what do you do, and why you do what you do.
So I'm Sonal Bhaskaran. I'm currently a mental performance coach. So I work with mostly men, actually, but I also work with founders and employees, helping them to free up more of their time during the week, not just to just to have more free time, but to actually build something meaningful. We tend to have lots of big goals and purposes that we try and achieve in our life. And with all the distractions that we have, it becomes difficult to kind of find that fulfillment. So I help them with that. And I do it because of two things, actually. So my own personal experience with very severe burnouts that I had a couple of decades ago. And the third time, I had a huge breakdown where I almost lost my life. But mostly, and the reason why I mostly work with men is because of my dad's journey to it. And we actually lost him. And since then, we've lost quite a few men just way before their years, on things that could have been, could have had another story to them.
That's very interesting. And I'll show you this mug that says Recovered Overthinker. So I'm so excited to talk to you. I think I'm going to learn a lot from you today. And it's funny, Tino, my producer, and I were just talking about prioritizing right before we came on to the podcast today. So why do we struggle so much? What is it that makes us lose our focus so easily? You're doing that on a daily basis. What do you think is the main reason for it?
When I look back at my journey and also the struggles of the people that I work with, most of it goes back to how we've been brought up. So if I look back at my childhood, there's kind of like a cultural expectation. You're brought up around certain ways of behaving, and it tends to be put other people first before you. Be the good son or be the good daughter. You want to be the good husband, and I think with that comes all these outdated stereotypes that people feel they have to live up to. So a lot of external validation, I think, and that all comes back to a lack of self-worth. And I think with that, then we end up in a couple of situations where we're so busy trying to feed our self-worth or self-esteem with the hope that other people will give that to us. Meanwhile, we're doing all these things that we don't really want to do, and we become frustrated with it as well. So you're kind of left with partly the resentment of doing things that you don't want to do, but you feel you have to do them, versus not having time for you and wondering why people are going so far ahead. And then it just becomes a loop. You just don't really know. You keep chasing something, hoping that the next thing is going to be the one that just solves all your life's problems. And that's how we end up into that circle of just chasing anything, any distraction. You get that fear of missing out, right? The FOMO of like, if I miss out the next thing, I don't know, it could be the biggest thing in my life. And you just keep going and you keep going, eventually until you just run out of fuel completely. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that we don't give ourselves time to think about what we want, because inherently we feel like it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing to spend so much time on yourself because people might view us differently. And actually, it's the best thing you can do. I know a lot of people say self-care first, and it's something that I believe in as well. But I fully believe that if you're not 100% yourself, you'll never be able to give your full self to anyone else. And I think another challenge is there's just so much advice out there, including mine. Mine probably adds to the noise as well. And people just don't know who to listen to. And I think sometimes they get to a point where that desperate to have a change. But then all the other stuff that they're kind of reading and trying to get help on, they just don't know which to choose. And then you just end up reading all of it, or you end up doing all of it, just like you do choosing every single opportunity because you're worried the one you don't take will be the one that would have ultimately changed your life. So I do think it's a combination of things. We weren't brought up learning self-awareness. We weren't brought up learning the importance of understanding who we are. And that is, that's the anchor, that's our inner compass, understanding what drives you. Once you're clear on that and you understand the impacts of doing things that don't align with that, you have the conviction to say yes and no to everything because you're so hell-bent on making sure that happens that it becomes very difficult to fall to the guilt trips that other people might try to get you to convince them, to convince you to say yes to them.
I've resonated with so many things of what you just said. So I'm just gonna try to pick on one thing that I thought it was very interesting. And I think I mentioned to you in our conversation recently that one of the big aha moments for me in the latest months, I would say, was this quote that I came across that said, "Don't focus on proving yourself, focus on improving yourself." And that was the biggest mind-blowing moment that I've had in the last few months, because I feel most of our lives, because of how we're being brought up, because of cultural, specific directions of where we're coming from, for example, we are taught to prove ourselves constantly to others. So we seek validation from the outside, not from the inside necessarily. It's not enough for us to, say, "Hey, you've done a great job." We need somebody else to say that. Do you think that this is a special moment of our society when this is happening, or was this always the case?
As in proving yourself to others?
As in, specifically in the time that we're living now with social media and seeing, other people being successful and comparing yourself to others. But is this a common thing that humans deal with, the fact that you want to constantly prove yourself?
I've seen with all the people that I've worked with and also in my circle, I think again, it goes back to that need for external validation and wanting to be liked. We all have this need for belonging. But I think what also muddies the waters is that you see on social media, that there is so much noise out there, and some of it, is prove other people wrong, and it's like, no, just prove yourself wrong. You've got nothing to prove to other people. And so on one hand, you've got the camp that says, focus on yourself, focus on your journey. But then on the other side, you've got people telling you, prove the people who did you wrong, and you prove them wrong, prove them that you can do it. And it's like, no, because what are you going to do after that? Who are you going to prove next wrong? Who are you going to prove wrong next? It's just going to be an endless battle. And so I still think those problems are still there. I think some of the problems that we saw decades ago are still there, but they're just in different forms now. The stereotypes are just as bad, and I actually think sometimes they are worse because they're a bit more discreet. Like, I hear people, especially in some of the circles that I used to be in, how people talk about the men in their lives. And it's okay. It's seen as okay to speak like that. Yet you've got this whole movement trying to get people away from those gender stereotypes. And if you can't change the way you think yourself and it starts with the individual, that's the only way you can really make that societal change. So I think the problems are still the same as they were before, either proving others wrong or, I guess even stereotypes is a way of, kind of proving to others that you can be more. But actually, it all comes back down to, none of that matters. It's what you can prove to yourself, what you can do, what's your potential. And that only ever really happens when you give time to yourself. So again, that goes back to us just never carving out time for ourselves and thinking it's okay to do that.
And also, I going back to what you said at the beginning, it's such a noisy place nowadays. There's so many things, and most of the things that you hear are shortcuts, right? Shortcuts to success. And if you do this, you're going to become this. And if you, do the other thing, you're going to get this amount of followers in 4 months. Uh, and here's a template for writing, and here's a template for I don't know, whatever aspect of your life nowadays seems to have a template. And this is one of the things that it's becoming more and more stressful to people, I would say, because what do you focus on, right? What of all these things do you need to focus on? What template should you focus on in order to get where you want to get? So I guess the question is, where do we start to put clarity and order, in this whole mess that we're in?
I think a good place to start, and it's something that I always say, is that if you're running a business and you've ever done like a brand assessment or the whole strategy, they'll always get you to get clear on the values of the brand, and it's no different to life. If you're not clear on what you stand for and what you believe in, you'll always be wavering because you don't know what you're trying to protect or what you're trying to build and create, and that is the starting point for everyone. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we've never thought about it. And, it just builds up and you see the symptoms building up, but you just don't know why or where or what it is. And it is always, most often, it's down to either not being clear on your values or knowing what your values are, but struggling to bring more of them into your life. So for me, it always starts from there, because that's your identity. So, if you're lost on that, that's when those problems start creeping in.
I love that you bring that up, because we are very aligned on this idea that whatever you do with a brand, and I've worked in marketing for so many years, and it's so normal, right? That you have a brand and when you want to position it in the world, whether it's a new brand or it's a rebrand, right, of an existing one, you start with the basics. What is the vision, or the North Star, as we like to say in Germany? What are the values? What are your core audience that you're speaking to? Because you can't be everything to everyone. On the other side, as people, we don't like this label of personal brand. It sounds cringy. And I kind of agree, but on the other side, if you take the brand and you think, okay, we want to position ourselves in the world in a certain way, and perception is important, and we want people to see us in a certain way, why not go through the same exercise and do exactly the same as any other brand would do, and figure out our vision and our mission for our lives and our values? I don't know why we don't talk about this topic more often. I don't really hear people saying it in this way. It's when you hear things about personal branding, it's typically, here's the strategy, here's how you can write, here's another template, here's how you can get followers in as quick as you can. But sort of, I think the process that comes before that, which is knowing who you are and what you're actually positioning yourself as in the market, in the world, is what really matters. And we don't seem to find that important for some reason.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I wrote something about this last year when I was going through my rebrand, because it was I had things in my personal life too, so it was great to have that review for my personal life as well as the business I was trying to create. And it's so much easier to do it on an entity that isn't you. Like, as much as you have the brand and everything, right? It's separate to the inner of you, and we're so emotionally attached. So I have been told, like, the way I kind of deal with things or manage things, it lacks emotion, and it's not that at all. It's just that I allow the emotion to be for a period of time, and then you have to go through a process of actually going up a level so that you're overseeing everything, so you can see everything from a third person point of view on your own life. Because otherwise, there's just too much bias attached to things, and you will never make the right decision. And we can't do that on ourselves often, like you can for a brand. And so it becomes much easier to do the things in business, which are the same things that you would do for yourself. You will streamline your processes to make it more efficient and effective, to save time. You should be doing the same in your life. You should be getting rid of the things that aren't needed. And yet we just refuse to do it because we're scared of what people might think. We're worried about how we might be perceived. we're worried about letting people down, like all these things. But with a business, it's an entity that you can create, and it's not human, it's
I
not
have to
you.
say, you'd be
And I think
surprised. Sometimes, I think, especially in the marketing world, I feel like we're very emotional. It's very hard to let go of concepts and ideas of who we think our brand is. I think I see it all the time, to be honest, and I understand that it becomes personal if you do it for long enough. It becomes sort of personal in the work as well. And I think this is one of the big challenges that we have in marketing sometimes, that you're too close to the brand. You've been working for the brand maybe for too long, and then it becomes personal, and you have a one type of idea of what the brand should be based on your personal experience with it, but you've lost touch with the reality of the market, right? And I think that's a little bit what happens with people. We're too emotionally invested in ourselves, in the brand us.
yes, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, you have a really good point, actually. I think you do, don't you? I think when you create something, you consider it your baby and so on. I guess where I was coming at it from is the business building side of things, and I think often we're probably a little bit more, as a business owner, we're probably a little bit more open to getting help, getting a brand strategist or a marketing coach or whatever it is to help us with that and guide us, than we are to finding someone to help us with doing the same thing on us. And I think that's where it can differ. But you raised such a good point that it's whatever baby you create for yourself, whether it's like an idea or a strategy, the moment emotions start playing a point and that's your guiding light, you start not seeing the things that you should be actually focusing on the most.
One of the things that I want to ask you about is, because I'm imagining the type of people that you work with, or if there are business owners and people like you that love to do things all the time, as I can also add myself to that select list of people, which is by no means something. It's not necessarily a good thing, the fact that you
Yeah.
don't find the time to just rest, right? So I'm not saying it
Yeah.
in a positive way by any means.
Yeah. Mm.
How do they feel the moment that they're all of a sudden get their calendar free? Isn't it frightening, that moment where you don't know what to do with yourself?
Yeah, it's so the way I work through it is at the very beginning, they'll do an audit of their week. So we all can see exactly where each half hour goes. And so within that week alone, they're realizing where all their energy is going. And often it's kind of a surprise to them as to how it's gotten this crazy. And so having that to look at each time kind of makes creating the new way forward much better, because they realize that it cannot be worse than what it is now. And would always start by putting in the things that they want to have that they miss out in life right now. And often it's, time with partners, time with family, time for themselves. That's the first thing that goes in. So, yes, we do start off with a blank kind of canvas, but we're actually got a comparison of the week they've done as it is today. And so every time they're a bit fearful, they're looking back at, oh, okay, so I really don't want to live that again. So, okay, I'm good with this. And then it's, exploring, well, for value one, so say, for example, belonging, which is a really big one, actually. What types of activities might you be able to bring in that help you embody that value more? And, you can see that they're enjoying exploring all the different things that could be possible and bringing back in things that they haven't had a chance to do for years that they really miss doing. And we make time for that first. And that actually gives them, more determination to be like, no, I actually want more time than that. Like, I want to do this and I want to do that. And the reason why I do it that way is because there are some things that you need to change if you're a business owner or in your career, if you want to make it go smoother. And it's a really difficult, like you were saying earlier, right? We get very attached to the way things are done, or we get very attached to an idea, and it's not always the best thing to move forward with. So when they see what they have to stand to lose if they don't make those changes, then suddenly they're all for it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm ready. And, sometimes getting to that new way of life or that new schedule, it can take a week, and it takes some tweaks and changes. You've got to see what is possible and what's not possible right now. But at the point at which it becomes their ideal and they're enjoying it is the point at which they're like, I'm not letting go of this. So then when we start to make changes in maybe bringing more boundaries into place and making changes in their business, removing certain products just because they thought it was a good idea at the time and it's not making any sales, they're ready. They're much more ready to say no and to actually remove it. And then it makes decision making easier. So I teach a lot about eliminative decision making, which means you always start from no and convince yourself to a yes, but now you've got that North Star to guide you. But it's also looking at, now that you've got your value set clear, what activities in your life, like even the tiniest of activities, are not aligning or supporting those values. So then you make a determination between high and low value activities. Do you want more of the high value? You want to ideally get rid of the low value, but like, this is life. You're not going to be able to get rid of everything you hate. You're going to have to do something that you don't like. And when we look at those, it's like, if you can't delegate it or remove it, let's simplify it. And so that's where process improvement comes into place. And process improvement is big in the large corporates. It works exactly the same in life because everything is a process. And if you can see it that way, again, it might sound like it's completely emotionless, but it's not. The way we think, everything is a process. And you want that process to be so simple that it becomes easy to adapt when other things happen to us that we can't control, that we can make a few tweaks here and there, that we can manage it fine. Like, that's all we're trying to do.
I love that. Life is a process.
Yeah.
I will write that down. Because it's true. It's everything that we do in life is made of very small steps, one after the other, right?
Yeah.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Decisions are really small steps, one after the other, that take us somewhere, right? Whether it's the right direction or it's the wrong direction, but it's still a direction that we're following.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about something that resonated with me while you were just explaining this. And it has to do with breaking our own glass ceilings. Because you mentioned this idea of when people see what's possible, they decide to act differently. The question is, why don't they see that before? And I guess my sort of gut feeling towards that and my own experience says, oftentimes we don't see what's possible because we don't allow ourselves to see what's possible. It's the sun is always there above the clouds, right? But we don't see it because we're just like right below the clouds, and we're still like in this mind space of, it's a hot mess. So there's this idea of our own glass ceilings that we place on ourselves and we're not able to break. How do we get ourselves to actually break it,
That's a really good question. For me, I'll always start with killing all that noise. So like, the distractions, saying yes to the wrong things and all that, because our mind gets so cluttered during the day. And we get so caught up in the day to day that we just don't have time to think about those things that you just mentioned. Let alone even just think about whether it exists at all, let alone it be a possibility. And so once all that is off your plate, you have that thinking time. And I think once that's there and you're looking at, your values, the things that you want to do in your life and why, that reason why, it doesn't have to change the world. It just needs to change yours. Like, it doesn't have to be this all-encompassing purpose that, heals every single person in the world. But it has to mean something to you. And I think once you understand what your life would feel like if you didn't do that, if you look back, at the whatever age you're going to not be here anymore, or whatever age you're going to die, and imagine you've just got an hour left till that point and you look back, what is the biggest thing you would ever regret doing? And it's like, it's looking back and thinking, oh, I wish I've, helped more people in this way, or I wish I'd have done this. And I think once you have that in your mind, and again, it's understanding the trade-off. So sometimes it's more about knowing what you're going to stand to lose versus what you stand to gain, because we always go for our head will always go to the negatives much quicker. If I ask you what you love, you might sit there and struggle for a while. if I ask you what you absolutely hate, like things are just going to come out. So I think when you're clear on what you stand to lose, it's going to make you want to go and do what it takes to actually get what you want done. And I think that, you know, for me, that will always be the starting point, to realizing that you can do it, because you're clear from distractions now, or most of the distractions, you know, because the noise just doesn't relate to setting boundaries around people. It's around technology. It's using technology for the right reasons. You know, technology is a great tool. Everyone complains about it, but it's allowed us to build businesses. It's a good thing. We just abuse it. You know, technology gives you the tools to use it less, and we don't use it. And once you have that space, you now have time to think. Your mind's not overloaded with pointless thoughts and other people's demands and expectations, because you're so hell-bent on not losing that thing that you hold so dear that you will do what it takes to get it. It's not easy, but it is that simple.
You know what? It's funny that we have this conversation even about time, when time doesn't seem to be a currency for us that is important. We think about external things like, you know, money, fame, recognition, you know, and we don't really think about time as really the currency of our lives. And I find it interesting, you know, Warren Buffett famously has a completely empty agenda at all times, because he says, and I think there's a conversation somewhere on YouTube with Bill Gates or something like that, where basically the two are talking, and Warren Buffett is saying, you know, my diary is always is empty, because I have all the money in the world to pay for everything, but I don't have enough time for everything that I want to do. So he thinks his time is really precious, and he considers that the biggest luxury. And when I heard that for the first time, it changed my mindset about what do we actually want to optimize our lives towards and for. Because the more, you know, the more famous we get, the more recognition, money we get, the more problems, like the song of the 90s is more money, more problems. You know, the more problems we have, the less time we have. And we think we want to build all these things to have more access and more opportunities. But in the end, when you get to that point, you have less time for yourself and your family and your kids. And so the question for me is, and I would love your feedback on that, is like, what are we optimizing our lives for these days?
We should be optimizing to, it sounds so cheesy, but I can't think of the right words now, but living our best lives, enjoying life, making memories and experiences. So for me, when I work with clients, it'll be putting all those experience time in, and it has to go into a diary, because otherwise people somehow find time to book in meetings and stuff. So you have to block that time off so it's not available for other people. And then it's a case of optimizing all the other activities that you have to do to make the money, to live that lifestyle, because bills don't pay themselves. Like, we have to be realistic as well, you know. And so you are optimizing your life for more freedom, but I would say it's a freedom of choice. You know, for me, even if I had all that time, I would still work. If I didn't have these businesses, I'd end up creating another one. And, you know, for me, that is important, not just any work, but stuff that fulfills me. But I would work, like, I know I would. And I've always been like that since I was a kid. For other people, they are happy to just, you know, go sit on a beach and just relax. And that's absolutely fine as well. But, you know, you're optimizing your life. And for me, you should be optimizing your life for that freedom of choice. And to have that freedom of choice, you actually should be learning to make better decisions. And to have that, you need to clear that noise. You need to understand what's important to you. But for me, it's all about obtaining that freedom of choice. And money does come into play. You know, I'm sure it's pretty easy for Warren Buffett to say that now, but, like, you know, for us as well, it's not impossible for us to be able to do that. But we always look at people at that and think, oh, it's okay for them. He has had to work to where he's got. We forget that people at that level did still do work, still have had to get up to that and do everything to make that happen. It's no different for us. You know, And you do need to work, but it doesn't mean you need to work on all the stuff that drains you. There are ways around it. And, when you have that freedom of choice, you have the freedom to be an entrepreneur or work for someone else or do both or do none of them. You can choose, because what you're choosing to do with your time is to actually make the most of it. I think the issue is that when we talk about optimizing time, people automatically think, do lots of things, or churn out more work and get more revenue and get more business. And it's not about that. It's about building more control over what happens in your life and having that freedom of choice. But that's another topic, I think.
But it's an important one, Son, because I think there's so much
Yeah.
conversation around productivity and so many people that talk about being more creative and doing this and this system for writing and this system for managing this type of information, and then in the end you're lost in all the things that you need to build around in order to be productive. And that's also, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's also good though to have people to look at. Obviously Warren Buffett had to hustle a lot to get to where he is, right? But it's interesting to see that where he is right now, he could just say, well, I keep doing what I'm doing because I want more, right? Whereas he's saying, actually, my time is more valuable. So I think for us people who are trying to achieve something and get to somewhere, and we're building this, huge objectives in front of us and we never reach them, and then there's another one, or maybe we reach them and then we place another objective on top and then we're never happy, right? I think it puts things into perspective. It definitely put things into perspective for me, because at the time when I heard about that, I was like, okay, if he thinks his time is the biggest luxury, actually, I have that time now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
Definitely.
have that problem that he has, that everyone wants a piece of him. So how am I using my time efficiently?
Yeah. And also that chasing, it's we're all, it's that finding that something missing, right? There's something missing, we don't know what it is, and we're hoping the next thing is the answer. And then it all goes back to that value set. Like everything for me will go back to that value set, and I'll probably bore people because I talk about it so much, but it's true. That's your identity, and you're never going to get that time back. So put it to the right things. And I think for people that like doing lots of things like us, I can see the difference between how I was when I burnt out, where I was doing less things than what I was doing now, versus now where I'm doing much more and I'm loving it and I have more time back. And it's all gone back to what I value, because everything I've focused my energy and attention on, including people, they all have my values in common. And so they all support each other. So while I'm doing 101 things, it doesn't feel like I'm doing 101 things, because they're all very similar. And they're all giving me the same thing effectively. It's when you're there doing 1,001 different things that just you don't even know what they mean or why you're doing it. You'll end up feeling like you're doing 10 times more than you actually are, because you're just not fulfilled, and you're just hoping that promotion is gonna nail it for you, or you're hoping that 10K month is just gonna solve everything for you, and then you get it and you're like, oh, maybe I need 20K next month. Like, this hasn't worked for me right now, so I'm just going to do more of the same. And it just never works out. You'll just be chasing your tail endlessly.
Yeah, you get that promotion and then it's, okay, I'm doing exactly the same as I was doing the day before getting the promotion, and now I have a different title. And okay, and what else, right? So paint me a picture of what is the state that people come to you in. What is the trigger for them to come to you? How are they feeling? What is the sentiment that they're going through to say, okay, I need Son's help?
So I ask questions when they book a call with me, and nearly all of them have put overwhelmed and disorganized. So somewhere along the line, they've identified that they have a problem with organizing, and they're feeling that, I call it the mental pinch. You feel like things are getting on top of you. And that's when they come to me. Rarely will I get people who have thought, I'm going to future-proof myself and make sure this doesn't happen. And it's normal. Like I waited not until my first burnout. I waited until like my life was at risk to do something about it. And it's better that you don't wait that long. But, sometimes you have to feel that pain enough that it makes you want to change something. And that threshold is different for everyone. And you can't force people. They'll just come to you. And I think it's in that industry where, you have to tread a bit carefully. Like we're taught, to have to convert sales and all this stuff. But I think with things like this, you can't push people when they're not, they'll never be ready. People are never ready, but they just know something has to change. But I think you're just adding more pressure to someone, the pressure that they've already got. Even though you can help them, they need to kind of want that help themselves. Otherwise, the whole journey is just painful. But yeah, they clearly identify as overwhelmed and disorganized.
And how do they feel after they've gone through the 5-step method? What's the transformation that you see in those people?
It's amazing because I also do energy work, so I blend that in with it as well. So it's a bit different to, I guess, the way other people might do the productivity stuff. But they feel back in control. They have that clarity. And it's brilliant because I've worked with business owners as well as employees. And with them, midway through or even at the second session, they'll identify that whereas before they might have thought they wanted to quit or do something completely different, they've realised that is just them trying to escape the root of the problem. And they feel like they can make the right decisions, so they trust themselves more. Whereas before, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to ask 1,001 people and then just see what happens and then ask a set of people. So they have that clarity of mind. They're able to make decisions much quicker purely because they know what they stand to lose and they don't want to go back to what it was like before. And, I do focus on productivity a lot and I hate productivity apps. Literally, the only app I use with them is a Google Sheet. And the reason why I do it that way is because we start developing a dependency on, habit apps reminding us that we need to breathe. Like it's just, you don't need that many things in your life. And I think the more you can rely on yourself, the better. So the more I can help people to become self-reliant. You want people to be in a place of, and we were talking about this in our conversation before, but you want people to, be in a place of want and not need. And therefore they're not codependent. They are fully capable of, living their own life their way. And that's where they are at the end of the 6 weeks. What they do with the hours they get back, I'll always say it's completely up to them, but they have more clarity on what they want to do with it. And then I work with them to make it happen. So some people set up side businesses. I help them build those. And then they'll work with me for a little bit longer. And others, they want to kind of step up in their current roles, but they want to take on more responsibility, not just get the title. And that is just amazing to see. That's brilliant. They've found a way that they want to give back to people. So it can happen in the corporate world too. And there's so much hate about the corporate world, and it's corporate isn't the problem. It's how you control the situations. It's how you're dealing with the situations that's a problem. And that's the one thing that none of us will ever admit to, is that a lot of the problems that we see, yes, there are toxic people in the world. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? You can't suddenly make them angels. Like, that's never going to happen. They have to want it for themselves. But you can make a choice to either leave and do something else, or make a choice to learn how to manage it. And that is in our control. And so you can have a level of freedom in the corporate world too. And if you don't, both the corporate world and being a business owner or entrepreneurship, they can both turn you into slaves just as equally as the other. It's all about how we approach it.
I feel like I'm going to start a tradition now with you in the podcast, just to sort of end things off. I'm interested in knowing, what do you think are the 3 things that make you who you are? Because we talked so much about, spending time figuring yourself out, understanding who you are and your values, and taking breaks and allowing yourself to think. And I guess, from previous conversations that that's what Unmatched is about as well. It's this process of figuring out that there's more than just one option out there, that there is no real glass ceiling, that you need to spend time with yourself first and figuring yourself out, and what your story is and what your journey is and what your purpose is and what your zone of genius is, your superpower, the thing that makes you you, so that you can stand tall and present yourself to the world in the way that you think you want the world to perceive you, right? But it can't happen if you don't know who you are. So I'm curious to know, what are the things that make Sun be Sun?
Curiosity, definitely. I've always been that annoying girl that asks why until someone gets annoyed enough. Creativity for me has always been important, and self-sufficiency. So those three are my I have a few more, but those three are the ones that make me me, definitely.
That's interesting, because they're also connected to each other. So like almost like
Yeah.
one feeds off of each other. One last thought before we go. What would you say to someone who's listening to us right now and is in that state right before calling you? It's they're overwhelmed, they're lost, they don't know what they're about, and they don't know what's missing. What would be the first step that they should take, except from just picking up the phone and call you?
Yeah. I will always say the first step you should take is, even if it's a pen and paper or even if it's a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, just list everything out that's in your current reality today. Every single activity, every single person, and exactly how I did it is go through each one, sit with it, and work out, when you've done that activity or when you've been with that person, how do they make you feel and why? Because when you see it in front of you, you will clearly spot the noise, because you're now feeling those emotions as if you're in that moment already. And that's the first place I would start. Feel that pain, because I think the more you feel it, the more inclined you are to be like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And it's out of your head and onto paper as well.
Son, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I feel it's been so clarifying in a lot of ways. It's brought a lot of clarity to, I hope, to many people, but definitely to myself. So thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Me too. I've loved it. Thank you so much.